Imagine this. The motorcycle brands you grew up trusting, the names that meant freedom and pride, now stand closer to collapse than anyone wants to admit. In this countdown, we'll reveal who's on the brink in 2025. And trust me, the last name will shock you. Stick with me till the end. You'll want to see it. Number 7. Norton. Founded in Birmingham, England back in 1898, it grew from a small machine shop into one of the most iconic motorcycle brands of the 20th century. Riders of a certain age remember Norton for its dominance at the Isle of Man, TT, for the roar of its racing twins, and for the Commando, a motorcycle that came to define British engineering and spirit. Norton was never about mass production. It was about exclusivity, prestige, and a sense of national pride. Yet today, what was once a source of admiration has become a case study in how a proud brand can stumble to the very edge of collapse. In the early 2000s, new ownership promised to return Norton to its rightful place among the world's elite manufacturers. Enthusiasts placed deposits, dealers prepared for inventory, and the motorcycling world waited for the rebirth of a legend. What followed was mismanagement on a staggering scale. Reports surfaced of unpaid suppliers, undelivered motorcycles, and pension funds misused. Loyal customers were left empty-handed, and the courts stepped in. For a brand that built its identity on trust, craftsmanship, and racing honor, the scandals of that period inflicted wounds that cut far deeper than financial losses. They shook the very foundation of belief in Norton's name. By 2020, bankruptcy loomed. Many assumed Norton's story would end as another faded chapter in motorcycling history. But an unlikely savior appeared when India's TVS Motor Company acquired the brand. With serious financial resources and global reach, TVS committed to building a new headquarters in England, investing in jobs, and putting Norton back into the conversation. For the first time in decades, there was reason to believe that Norton might not just survive, but rise again. Yet, survival is one thing. Restoring trust is another. While factories have been rebuilt and small batches of motorcycles delivered, the shadow of past mismanagement has not lifted. Norton's challenge is not simply producing motorcycles. It is proving to the world that it can once again operate as a stable, reliable brand. Dealers remain scarce, especially in America, where older riders might admire the name but hesitate to buy into it without confidence in parts supply or long-term service. The brand is still associated more with nostalgia and scandal than with reliability. That is a dangerous reputation when competing against global giants with established networks, affordable options, and a consistent track record of supporting riders over decades. What makes Norton's situation so precarious is that it remains caught between two worlds. On one side, it trades heavily on heritage, the racing victories, the craftsmanship, the aura of exclusivity. On the other, it must compete in a modern market where riders demand value, reliability, and long-term support. Straddling that line has left Norton vulnerable. It risks being admired from afar rather than ridden on the open road. For older riders who still remember its glory days, seeing the brand struggle is a reminder that prestige alone cannot guarantee survival. Norton still exists. It is not yet a museum piece, but it teeters on the edge unless its new ownership can deliver more than promises. It is not yet a museum piece, but it teeters on the edge unless its new ownership can deliver more than promises. Unless it can rebuild trust through consistency, strong support, and motorcycles that reach the hands of real riders, the brand may not survive the coming years. Norton carries the weight of over a century of history, but history alone will not keep a brand alive. But if you think that's bad, wait until you see who's next. If you've made it this far, you're clearly riding with us through the truth. Hit that like button to keep this story rolling and drop a comment with your own experience. Number 6. Moto Guzzi. It is one of the oldest names in motorcycling with roots stretching back to 1921 on the shores of Lake Como in Italy. The brand has always stood apart, building motorcycles that carried unmistakable style and mechanical character. For riders of a certain age, the Eagle logo and the sound of a transverse V-twin meant more than just another machine. It meant a motorcycle with a soul. Moto Guzzi built its reputation on heritage, simplicity, and durability, creating a culture around its name that was less about mainstream popularity and more about loyalty and tradition. Yet, for all its history, the company now finds itself in a precarious place, struggling to keep pace in a world that demands growth, innovation, and wide availability. Throughout the decades, Moto Guzzi earned respect not by chasing volume, but by building motorcycles that felt unique. It became a brand for riders who wanted to stand apart from the crowd, who valued heritage over hype and craftsmanship over mass appeal. But that niche approach has always left the company vulnerable. Its parent, the Piaggio Group, owns multiple brands, and the spotlight usually falls on Vespa or Aprilia, leaving Moto Guzzi to make do with limited investment. Sales volumes have remained small, dealerships are few and far between, and in many parts of the world, the brand has become more of a curiosity than a serious choice. In the United States, that scarcity is even more noticeable. Many older riders admire the name, but cannot find a dealership nearby to buy or service one, making long-term ownership a challenge. The biggest problem for Moto Guzzi has been its difficulty adapting to the modern motorcycle market. For years, the brand leaned on designs that trace back decades, while rivals evolved quickly, adding advanced electronics, safety systems, and broader model lineups. Moto Guzzi moved cautiously, often too cautiously. The result was that while the company's motorcycles still carried undeniable charm, they began to look like relics in showrooms filled with high-tech competition. For its most loyal fans, that old-school identity was part of the appeal. But for younger riders and practical buyers, it looked like stagnation. A brand can live on passion for only so long. Even today, Moto Guzzi has a dedicated following who speak of its motorcycles with near familial devotion. They praise the individuality, the quirks, and the heritage that cannot be copied. But loyalty without numbers does not keep factories running. Global production has remained relatively small, and without a stronger dealer network or bigger marketing push, Moto Guzzi risks becoming little more than a heritage badge under Piaggio's wide umbrella. The company has announced efforts to modernize, including investments in its historic Mandello del Lario factory. But progress has been slow, and the wider market continues to move faster than the brand can follow. Moto Guzzi still exists, still produces motorcycles, and still holds a respected place in motorcycling history. But existence alone is not survival. For older American riders who value torque, comfort, and heritage,